Welcome to TM Radio Broadcasting. My name is Frank Allen. We are live from Boston, Massachusetts. Today's date is Friday, July the 25th, 2025. To listen to the broadcast, dial +1 518 801 1318. When we are off air, you can listen on this line to past episodes 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Call the studio and ask Ben or myself a question at +1 617 987 8603. Tonight, I would like to welcome, here from New England, Benjamin Conine. We will be discussing his very interesting story. Don't hesitate to call into the studio at 617-987-8603. And now Ben is going to give us a lead into his background. Go ahead, Ben.
Hi, I'm Ben. So my background for years, since I was 18, I got into the marijuana kind of scene, and I was a professional grower. I worked at a hydroponics store, so I basically learned a lot early on. I would teach people. I worked as like a consultant going and helping people, learn how to grow their own before it was legal here in Massachusetts. After a while, I started doing, larger kind of grows over the course of 20 years, about 15 years. Became a pretty big marijuana grower on the black market here before it was legal. When you start off, you're dealing with mostly kind of normal people, but as you get bigger, you start to get involved with kind of unsavory characters, people you normally wouldn't deal with. And as the market started to get more hostile, prices started to drop dramatically because of legalization and competition from stuff being brought in from the West Coast. I had to deal increasingly with big-time criminals that were involved in other stuff that I wasn't involved with. Basically in the Boston area, Cambridge, and Providence, Rhode Island, I got to know some pretty heavy hitter kind of affiliated people. I'd have to go and hang out with them and, kind of pal around with them. After a little while, that became a bit much for me, especially when I started hearing talk that they were involved, obviously, in all the things that, organized crime is kind of involved with, women, basically like trafficking, which they didn't talk about a lot in front of me because they knew that I was kind of a grower, telltales out of school. I was working with some people and some pretty large projects, started strong-arming me, trying to get me to set up bigger and bigger, basically for the same amount of money. And then it also became a criminal enterprise where people are throwing their weight around. There's a few close calls with that. I can't really get into. I basically said, F this, I'm done, and I'm going to just get a normal job. And I just basically had to walk away from things that I had set up, pretty large things I had set up, in Massachusetts here. I don't know if that maybe made some people mad. There was some pretty dangerous people that I kind of turned my back on, and I let them have everything. So I thought they'd be happy with that. But I think the disrespect angle of things maybe triggered some people. It wasn't long after that I started going about my life. I had met my wife at that point. She was a beautiful woman from Thailand that I was introduced to through a friend of a friend. We moved away from Mass. We moved over to Pawtucket. From there, after a couple years, it was strange. All of a sudden, the landlord was increasing the rent dramatically, basically forcing us to move, doubling the price of the rent over the course of a year. When we were looking for apartments, we just couldn't find anything. And all of a sudden, she said, "Oh, I know somebody through the Thai community. It's a place in Newton. It's extremely cheap. It was like $1,600 for like a nice apartment in Newton, which is suspiciously cheap." We moved in there in October of 2023. Everything started getting really weird. First thing I noticed was there was a restaurant downstairs, which was basically, it's the Shaking Crab. It was the founding the location, like the flagship location of Shaken Crab. Found out that the house was actually owned by the founder of that restaurant, who's a Chinese millionaire. Him and a silent partner, which I couldn't find any information about, Mr. Wu, and they worked for a larger Chinese conglomerate, real estate conglomerate. All sorts of weird stuff started happening. I noticed that it seemed like the restaurant had no business at all. There was nobody going there, and there were cars showing up there in the middle of the night. I heard, deliveries happening in the middle of the night, sound like barrels and crates being dragged in. Even mentioned to my wife at one point, I was like, I think that they might have kind of it might be kind of a front type of situation. I'm not going to say anything, but, I know, how these things work. And, restaurant businesses are, a great way to launder money. And that was when all of a sudden I had my computer set up there. When we moved in, they said, oh, we have free Wi-Fi. You can use our Wi-Fi. I'd never been to an apartment before where they offered free internet. It was kind of weird, but right after I mentioned a couple times, my wife, like, yeah, something shady's going on. My computer got hacked with surveillance software. At first, it was just running slow. I took it offline, and I started looking through it, and I found a program that they were using. They had basically set up a local, it was like a group on my computer. And when I went into another profile, I found options like when computer is turned off, put into sleep mode. When computer is in sleep mode, keep microphone on, connect to X computer, all sorts of different hacking tools on there. They, had done things like it was an extensive, somebody had really like attacked my computer and gotten in through the network, basically set up. They went through my registry and did all sorts of stuff to mess up my computer, like living off the land attacks. And then I found other malware on there, the banker malware or Bankster, which is, basically steals like all your information and sends it out through email to the attacker. And then my phones got hacked after that. And it was really weird. And I kept telling my wife, like, this is really strange. Like, everything's hacked, but none of, they didn't take any money out of our bank account. They got all that information through my email. They hacked all my emails. They all were broken into. And then the strange noises started happening. And I started hearing like all sorts of weird stuff. It sounded like my wife would go to bed, and I usually would stay up for a couple hours. I love like researching stuff. So I was always researching deep state stuff. I love conspiracies. I've always been like that for like 20 years. I was always like posting them on this Discord I have.
Hold up, Ben. We have a call.
Rather. All sorts of different things about, the CIA, Department
of
Defense.
Hello, caller.
I love like learning about.
Hello, caller.
I love learning about like MK Ultra and Project Monarch and all these different.
Hello, caller.
Different things that had gone on in the past. Project Phoenix.
Hello, caller.
And
hello, caller. Go ahead. We have a caller. I've been trying to get through to you. That's all right. Go ahead, caller. Okay, I think that what happened is they thought that was the listener line.
Okay.
AI is taking notes.
I just wanted to ask you a question. Do you think that the CCP is somehow involved in this? Getting back to the restaurant?
Yeah, I do. I think that, from what I could see, right away, it seemed like this place was obviously owned by, Chinese millionaires. A Chinese millionaire that worked with a company out of China. I think it was a SC Management Group or something like that. And they have hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in real estate. And any company that's in China, they have to work with the CCP. So that is definitely one of the connections. I think the other end of things is that, foreign governments, and I think, our intelligence communities are more friendly with China than most people would think. I know it's kind of set up on the news, and, there is a, adversarial relationship between us. But, in the end, China was initially set up, by our banking interests. We helped to fund, Mao Zedong. As we said, we were supporting Chiang Kai-shek in the newspapers. But in reality, we had sent Wild Bill Donovan, from the CIA over there to train Mao's troops in guerrilla tactics. You know,
Wow.
while we were showing, you know, pictures in the newspapers of, oh, we're sending tanks over to the nationalists and Chiang Kai-shek to fight them. What we were actually doing was, you know, what we always do. There's always a cover story, and then there's what's actually happening. And we taught them, you know, guerrilla warfare, asymmetric warfare, the communists. And when they became established and chased off Chiang Kai-shek to Taiwan, the first thing we did, they didn't have any banking, and Chase Bank stepped in, and Rockefeller went over there and was praising them, and they got all sorts of support and got their, you know, their banking set up so that they could, you know, do international banking, because otherwise they would not have done very well.
Ben, watch
So,
your
you know,
chat.
we have a friendship with them.
Ben, watch your chat, okay?
Yeah. My chat.
Yeah. Well, keep an eye on your chat.
Okay.
All right. I was curious. Did you see, was this restaurant open at all, or was it just
It was
a front?
It was open, yeah. It was open, and this is another very interesting thing that I found out, because I was just trying to, you know, I was like, what's going on? Like, you know, right away I figured that it was, you know, some kind of front for, you know, drug trafficking or something like that. And they had this huge ventilation system set up. Like, they had like your regular hood set up for their kitchen, you know, where they suck the air out and blow it up. But then on top of our apartment, which is on the third floor, they had this massive fan that was super loud and would shake the whole apartment when it was on. And it was like this big inline fan that was on, you know, from when they opened at like, you know, noon or you know, 11 a.m. to like 9 or 10 at night. And that thing was just always going. And then I found it was so weird. Like, this guy was walking by when I was leaving the apartment, the you know, the restaurant apartment, you know, combo thing. And he walks up and goes, "Hey, I used to live there." And I go, and he's this older dude just walking by. And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And he goes, "You know, that place used to be a funeral home." Yeah, they, you know, you ever see the basement? And I was like, "No, they keep it locked all the time. They don't let us down there. We're having problems with our heating." And I said I'd go down and help, you know, set up the furnace. And they wouldn't let me down there. And he was like, "Yeah, they used to like cremate bodies, and you know, they have like, it's a, you know, yeah, the place is supposedly haunted and blah blah." I don't know. You know, it was like the guy was like waiting for me when I came out, and I was like, "All right, man, cool, thanks. I gotta go to work." And but yeah, I think, you know, there was this basement that was basically off limits that I guess was pretty extensive and was hooked up to this ventilation system. And when I looked into the Shaken Crab, I found that they had tried to set up a restaurant in Worcester, and they did end up setting it up, but they had a big discrepancy with the real estate deal because they wanted to set up this specially designed ventilation like stack, like a chimney that like was extra tall and extra strong, and it was designed by a Chinese engineer. And they said it was kind of like mandatory for any of their restaurants. And the city of Worcester and you know, and the people doing the real estate deal were like, "There's already a ventilation system set up for the restaurant that was there before. Like, why do you want to do that?" And they threatened to cancel this $7 million deal over it until Worcester caved and was like, "Okay, fine, like, you know, set up the big, you know, basically you know, smokestack." So that's an interesting thing. So I don't know what's going on with that. But yeah, I don't know. That's when everything started going crazy. All my stuff got hacked, one phone after another. They were just heating up. The battery was dying halfway through the day. All my emails got hacked, and my computer was destroyed. Basically, once I found that surveillance malware on there, I thought I'd gotten rid of it, and I put it back online, and then it just was like, it's like they just nuked it, and I had to just throw away the hard drives because it just wouldn't, my computer wouldn't even work anymore. And since then, I've not been able to set up a computer, a PC every single time. It basically gets fried. And this last time, it looks like they fried the motherboard or the GPU, and it won't even turn on. So I have to use a phone now, where before I was usually a big computer guy. But yeah, and that's when the really weird stuff started happening. So
Okay,
at this
Ben.
place, yeah.
I just wanted to let you know, watch your chat. Did you leave this company or your growing company? Did you leave that adversarially, or did you actually just leave on friendly terms?
No, it was not. It was not friendly. I mean, I had partnered up with somebody who was affiliated with some dudes out of Providence and Cambridge, and he had multiple properties, and so we set up a couple things, and he just got more and more aggressive as time went by and tried to basically pile on more work and expand things while not increasing my profit or pay at all. So after a while, it came down to like he was making these insane demands, and I just said forget it, and I just left. And I was just like, yeah, you can run it. Find somebody else to run it. And get away from
Okay,
me. I didn't even talk to him.
this could be the reason why you are targeted. Usually there
Yeah,
is a reason, and that could be it. And I was
yeah,
going to
very much,
ask,
yeah.
I was going to ask you, what could be the greatest reason why you are here on our show tonight? And that's the targeting. Can you go into detail, as you will, on your targeting and how you were
Yeah.
handling it? Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, the targeting. So the targeting, so that started in Newton. So that apartment I was telling you about. Um, I noticed two things pretty much at the same time. One was at night, I was starting to hear like weird noises. It sounded like footsteps, and I remember the guy saying, "Oh, it's haunted. It used to be a funeral home," but I didn't. It did. It just sounded like footsteps and weird like noises in the walls, and. And it would be late at night after my wife had gone to bed and I was sitting there on the computer or on my phone. Usually stayed up for a couple hours after my wife went to bed. And yeah, so that started happening. And
Hello,
at the same
caller.
time,
Taking notes.
Hello, caller. I am speaking to the person calling the studio. Would you please speak? Okay, this is not a listener line. This is actually the line direct to the studio. If you want to listen, dial 518 801 1318. Okay, the minute they heard that, they hung up. Go ahead, Ben.
yeah, so on top of those strange noises starting to happen, and right when after my computer got hacked, in like the weeks after that, when I first told my wife, she was like, "Oh my God, like that's crazy! Like I can't believe somebody destroyed your computer like that." And I showed her, and she was like, "Oh wow." And I was telling her like, "This is really weird because there's a lot of like surveillance type stuff on there, and I don't know what that's about." And after a couple weeks, like I would mention it because then my phone is getting hacked, and I was like, "Look, honey, my phone got hacked," and then she started like acting very strange, and if I brought it up, she would get into these like very like long rambling arguments and get very mad, and all of a sudden start saying like we should get a divorce like out of nowhere. And this is from a woman where we had been together at that point for 5 years, and we never argued. We really never had an argument. We were a very very happy couple. And she's tough, but the worst it ever get was like, hey, pick your dirty clothes up off the ground, don't leave them on the ground over there, put them in the hamper. And I'd be like, oh, okay, sorry about that. And now like she would go into these very strange rambling arguments over if I brought up anything having to do with my devices being hacked.
Do you believe that she is targeted as well? If so,
Yeah.
why do you feel this way? You've just told me. I can agree with your feeling. I went through the exact same situation verbatim.
Right.
Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah. So I mean, it advanced from there. And what I started to figure out is it looked like that me and her had been targeted. We'd been moved into this place on purpose, and there was bizarre things that happened. Like I ended up finding a whole hidden room behind the bathroom. I was in the bathroom one day about to take a shower, and I hear aerosol spraying. and I'm looking around like, what is that? Like, it sounds like somebody's just like spraying hairspray, like over because I had run the shower to get it hot, and all of a sudden I heard that aerosol sound, and I'm looking around, I'm like, what the hell? And it happened a couple times, and I just thought, like, is it maybe the shower head's getting, making weird noise? But like I think the third or fourth time it happened, I just happened to kind of look up, and there was the light was shining, and up near the vent from the ceiling, there was aerosol, like shadow coming from the light. Like the light was casting a shadow of aerosol on the wall, like it was being sprayed out of the ceiling. And I jumped back, and I was like, what is this? And that happened twice, and I didn't know what the heck it was. But then when things started getting crazier, there was a panel on the side of the bathroom, like behind the toilet, and I opened it up. I thought it was just like pipes for plumbing or something, and I opened it up, and there was an entire bedroom that was all sealed off. It was just open, and I it was like a 2x3 panel that I had to just basically like step through, and then it was a whole like bedroom, like a small bedroom that was totally cut off, and you could see into the bathroom through cracks, and there was a crawl space that went around the entire side of the house, and the floor was all obscured with that kind of blow-in insulation stuff, and when I looked up, there was it looked like there was like a space where like a smaller person might be able to actually crawl up to a crawl space above the bathroom, but I couldn't get up there. I didn't have the ladder. And so I started thinking, like, is there a crawl space like above? And I went and I dismantled the light fixture above me in the living room where I've been hearing footsteps and weird noises. And I looked up through there once I pulled the light fixture out of the ceiling, and I found that there was a large crawl space above that as well. That was about, I'd say, 5 or 6 feet high, way easy for somebody to just walk around up there. When I talked to the Thai couple that were the property managers before this Chinese millionaire of the place, they said, like, no, there's no attic, there's no way to get up there. I don't know what that is. But when I looked up into it, like, I saw, like, it looked like fresh, like that, full insulation up on the the framing of it, and there wasn't a cobweb on there. It wasn't dirty. It looked all like fresh. So I think that they had some way to access above the bathroom and above the living room, and therefore the bedroom too. And I think that that's a big element of how the organized crime people do this targeting thing. It's not just, a lot of people talk about poisoning. They're targeting individuals. They say that they think they're being poisoned. But if somebody's set up in an apartment where they're able to pump in some type of gas or some type of aerosol, as far as a hypnotic or some type of drug or something that might be an industrial chemical that damages the brain and doesn't show up on any type of blood panel, that would be how somebody would do that. Yeah. Oh, you got a commercial coming up?
Yeah, it's coming up at 8:00. I just wanted to make you
Okay.
aware of it. We can go to that now if you like, since you've stopped. Let's go. Here's your commercial.
Chris, I've been hosting events for targeted individuals, but no one ever comes.
You need TIevents.org. It's where TIs find all the events, conference calls, meetups, webinars.
How do I get listed?
Just go to TIevents.org. It's easy. TIevents.org, where the TI community connects. List your event today.
Michigan and Ohio targeted individuals, this is your moment. We're finally coming together on Friday, August 22nd for the first ever Michigan-Ohio TI Community Picnic and Barbecue at Kensington Metro Park in Michigan. We'll be grilling for everyone. Expect giveaways, a recognition ceremony, and space to share your story. This isn't just a gathering, it's a statement. Because together, we stand. RSVP now at TIevents.org and share everywhere. This event is proudly hosted by the Michigan-Ohio TI Leadership Team. See you there.
Okay, Ben, we can come back from commercial now. I just wanted to ask you a question. Are there any other players in this drama other than the perpetrators? Sometimes there's a third party that you don't recognize until later on.
Well, yeah, I was just about to get to that.
Okay.
It seemed to me crooked cops. When I found the crawl spaces behind the bathroom, above the living room, I called the police because I'd been hearing so much creeping around in the walls. I didn't know what was going on. And, it was like literally like you could look into the bathroom, from this room. Like there were like peepholes. So I called the Newton police. And, and I was like, hey, I don't know what's going on here. I don't know if they're, they got some. There's an owner of the restaurant. I think one of the son was involved also. Multiple people had keys to the restaurant. And I'm like, I don't know what they got going on here. They got crawl spaces and secret rooms with peepholes behind the bathroom. I don't know if people like looking at my wife when she was going to take a shower. I was all freaked out. And, at that time, I didn't know what targeting was. I thought that was all like mental illness stuff. Yeah, I think they're already working on me there. They were freaking me out. They were trying to make me ultra paranoid. I felt like, very on edge all the time. I called the police and they showed up. I showed them this secret room that was behind the bathroom. And I was like, yeah, I've been hearing creeping around the walls. And I thought maybe it was just, rats or raccoon or squirrel or something. But look at this. And there's peepholes and stuff. When I called the police, they show up like instantly. Like they showed up instantly. It was weird. And the first cop that shows up, he's this big hulking dude with a neck tattoo. And he comes up and he's like, oh, yeah, nobody could fit in there. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I just got in there myself. It's like a 2 by, it's like 2.5 foot by 3.5 foot panel. You just walk right through there. And I don't know if there's another way to access it from another part of this like old house. I mean, the house is like, very old. It's from like 1920 or something. He just goes, no, that's nothing. Nobody could fit in there. And then he walks over and there was like a half a beer I had on a table. And he picks up the beer and he smells it. And he goes, beer, huh? You been drinking a lot tonight? And I was like, no, I had a beer. That's the beer that I had. And so right away, he was just trying to discredit me and acting like super strange about it. And more cops show up. And when those cops show up, they're looking in the crawl space and the peephole, and they at the the crawl space and the big secret room and the peepholes and everything. And their eyes are like wide open, like they're all freaked out. Like they're looking in there like, oh, what the hell? Like they were showing like, yeah, this is crazy. This is weird. But he was cool as a cucumber and he was leading the whole thing and was just like, yeah, it's nothing. Like, this is nothing at all. Don't worry about it. And that's when that was the first time I kind of had suspicions that police were involved. From there, I moved out of there and we moved to Waltham.
That was Worcester County, you say?
That was in Newton.
Okay, that was Newton. Then you moved to where?
So we moved to Waltham, this place, Charles Bank, in Newton. Again, it was one of her friends from the Thai community, and they were like, oh, we have an apartment. It's ready to go right now. They want somebody to move in. We moved in. Again, it was like our only choice for moving. Like, I was all freaked out. I was like, we got to get out of here. There's creepy stuff going on. We moved. This place was exactly the same thing. Exactly the same. We had one upstairs neighbor who would stomp around all day, like they were stomping around in boots or something. And again, I was in the bathroom one day, I hear aerosol. And I'm looking around, I'm like, there's no ceiling fan, there's nothing. I open up a cupboard. There was like a cupboard next to the toilet. And when I looked up, like if you look inside of the cupboard and then up like towards where the frame was, like, where you normally would never look, a whole section was cut out of the wall. So basically somebody from the upstairs could, spray something in surreptitiously where nobody would know. And I was still hearing the spraying noise, and I reached up there and I get water sprayed on my hands. There was a liquid being sprayed down like from there. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, what is this? This is crazy. And again, all night long, there would just be like these weird noises. It sounded like people were going into the basement below us. It sounded like the people upstairs were like constantly moving around. I was hearing like weird voices up there, which, now I don't know if it was just V2K or if it was, I was actually hearing anybody up there. So this one day, I was I tried setting up Blink cameras. I tried setting up these Wi-Fi cameras because I was like, all right, there's something going on. I got to secure the house. Immediately, my internet just starts going down over and over and over again. And, the cameras rely on the internet there. So I call up my ISP, Astound, and I'm like, yeah, what's going on? And he looks at it and he goes, yeah, it shows that your internet is being cut. It looks like it got cut at 3:30 in the morning. It got cut at 4 in the morning, multiple times on multiple different mornings. And I was like, well, why would that happen? And he goes, I don't know, because your neighbor upstairs, they have the same internet. and they're not. It says here their connection was fine the whole time. I get, I schedule an appointment, and a lineman comes out, or whatever they are, technician, and he finds that the lock, basically where the the internet line, or cable line comes from the telephone pole to the house. There's like a box with a lock on it, and the lock is busted. It's been broken open. And then I ask him, like, does that happen a lot? And he goes, sometimes, I guess. And then he goes, it's kind of weird around here. This is a weird area. And I'm like, what do you mean by that? And he goes, it's just something that I hear. I've just heard that this is kind of a weird area. I go, okay, all right. And as I'm talking to him, I see these cops walking by, like walking down, like, my driveway. What the hell is this? So I walk over. I walk over and I open the door, and they're like, oh, are you Ben? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, what's up? They go, yeah, we got a call, saying that you ran down in the basement. They set up a camera down there, and that you ran down in the basement and you weren't acting like yourself. And I was like, oh yeah, no, like, because I had contacted the property owner, the management, and I was like, yeah, it sounds like people are going into the basement, like, and the basement door, again, the basement door, the doorknob to it from the outside was broken. There was no way to lock it. And they had set up a camera down there. And, like, one morning I had heard, somebody, like, shuffling around down there. And so I ran down the stairs and nobody was there. And I went, ugh. And I walked back up the stairs. So the property management called the cops and said, oh, I saw this guy. He was acting crazy on the camera. He's running around in there, and I want to wellness check him, that he's not acting like himself. So they basically set me up.
Wow, that's crazy.
And the cops show up, and they come in, and I go, yeah, like, I've just been here, and I don't know if it's like kids just, breaking in down there to hang out because it's open. I don't know what it is. I was just kind of like, I couldn't really tell them the whole story, what's going on. It sounded crazy. They go, all right, well, we just want to make sure you're all right. And I go, yeah, I'm all right. I'm just, like I said, they set up the camera, and the lock was busted. And I was like, but thank you very much. You guys can go now. I got to deal with this cable guy. And they were like, actually, we're here for your safety. And I go, what? And they go, yeah, we're going to have you evaluated, and we're going to have a mental health professional come by and check you out. And I go, for what? For walking down into a basement and seeing if there's somebody there? And they go, yeah, we think maybe you're hearing voices. And I went, oh. I go, okay. Well, I'm not. And then they're like, all right, well, we're just going to wait here until they get here. And so I'm standing there with these cops in my living room, and one of the cops is like bug-eyed. He looks crazy. He's looking all around. I have these Stanley Kubrick, like, movie posters on the wall, and he's like, yeah, Stanley Kubrick. You know a lot about him? I go, yeah, he has some very interesting movies, that if you look into them, there's some interesting stuff in there. And he goes, yeah, he was crazy. And I go, all right, that's cool. And the guy's eyes are bugging out of his head. I'm like, what is this? So an ambulance shows up. I go, okay, so are they going to evaluate me? Like, is there an EMT that's going to talk to me and see if I'm bonkers? And the cop goes, no, you get on the gurney, you're going to the hospital. And I go, what? I was like, there's no one to evaluate me? And he goes, no, you have to get on the gurney. And they parade me out in front of, like, all the neighbors. They put me in a gurney, and they drive me to this hospital in Cambridge. Now, we're in Waltham. And when I get to the hospital in Cambridge, the intake nurse is like, why did they bring you here? There's, like, 2 other hospitals, on the way here. Like, why did they send you here in particular? I don't know. This has never happened to me. I'm freaked out. Like, at this point, I think they're just trying to, like, throw me in a mental institution with just, like, crooked cops. The cop, by the way, that was, in charge, that said he wanted to have me evaluated. He was extremely hostile. He kept saying, like, is there going to be a problem? And he would get into, like, this, like, pose, like he was getting ready to, like, tackle me or grab me. Totally calm, just like, no, like, can I change out of my work clothes and irregular clothes? Because I'm covered in, like, filth. I was in basements all day fixing washers and dryers. He's like, yeah, you can do that. And then they were just sitting there watching me change the whole time with their, like, arms outstretched, like they're getting ready to tackle me. And I was just like, this is crazy. They evaluate me at the hospital. They keep me there for like 2 hours. My wife shows up and she's like, yeah, he's fine. There's nothing the matter with him. And they let me go. And that was the first time that they did this, because this is what these people do. They basically try to establish a violent, crazy criminal, or they try to establish that you have some type of mental health problem.
So Ben,
this is what I found out. This is a constant pattern.
Is this
with TI?
At this point, you and your wife are getting along. She stuck up for you at this point.
Yes, she would go into like she would still go into these if I brought up like certain things like I think something weird's happening at night or my device is being hacked. Then she would go into these weird rambling arguments, but everything else is still normal with her. And yeah, so after that failed attempt, as when I got back, the property management that runs the place, they tell us like we want you to move out. We don't want you living here now. And if you move out, by the end of the month, it was March of 2024. Yeah, March of 2024. They go, if you move up at the end of the month, then we'll give you half your rent back. Then the pressure is on because they're basically saying like we're gonna kick you out, like for nothing, for walking down into a basement.
What did you do?
So at that point, again, she has a friend in the Thai community that goes, "Oh, I have a place. Like, yeah, there's a place, here in Stoughton. This place in Stoughton called Stone Ends, and we want you to move in here. There's an apartment there, and I talked to the property management here, and they want to rent this apartment. Come move here." At this point, I'm starting to recognize the pattern, and I'm already feeling like this is another setup. Like this is another setup, and I mean, like, and I left out like. In Waltham, just for that month that we were there for 1 month. I've never lived at a place for that short my entire life. We were there for 1 month, and they terrorized me like all night long with like crazy noises. It sounded like people like trying to break in. I'm hearing noises from the basement, like somebody's creeping around under there. The upstairs, they're stomping around with boots. I hear weird like people talking and crazy laughing, and I'm just like freaking out like the whole time. This was like the beginning, I think, of like the BCI, where they were starting to basically, with the brain computer interface technology, that they use this whole government setup that they have. They can basically, put you into states of fight or flight, panic, paranoia. And I was freaked out the whole time, like horrified, like what is going on? Like too much. I'm a pretty level-headed person. I've been through a lot, and like I just felt weird the whole time. And when we moved to Stoughton, I think it was April 2024. Like right away, like the place is bizarre, and right away I notice the head of maintenance is a military guy. I later find out that he was an officer in the Air Force. Both of the women in the front office, her husband's in the armed forces, and the other one comes from a family of like Boston police. So as soon as I'm moving in there, I'm like, this is like a government setup. Like I'm in like some kind of government like weird setup. Like they're trying to like put me in a loony bin, and like they're moving me to these weird apartments. I already knew it. And that is where things went crazy. That's where the full on V2K, full on targeting stuff started happening. Where I mean, I was like in that apartment, like it was just like people suddenly were just like talking at me like all the time. Like all of a sudden there was just people talking in my head. Right away, I mean, they tried all sorts of things. Like at first they were trying to like convince me they were like demons. They were like saying they were like, like they were demons, that they were like, that they were going to take my wife, and that like, if I stayed there, then I was basically giving them permission to take my wife and all this crazy stuff. And the whole time I'm just like, what agency is this? Like, what is this? Is this CIA? Who is this? How are you doing this? This is amazing. This is synthetic telepathy. Like, what is this? And I started doing research like right away. And then they gave up on that, and they just switched over to full on psychological torture and abuse. Yeah, just basically telling me like, we're turning your wife into a sex slave. You were set up with her in the first place on purpose. We're going to traffic your wife, and we're going to turn her against you. Like basically telling me all this. And I thought it was just a psychological trick, to kind of like, make me think that my wife was cheating on me, even though she's a very, very faithful woman. I mean, she only had one boyfriend before me. I met her when she was 30. She only had one boyfriend before me, very faithful, very devout Buddhist, comes from a great family, very, very religious. And I thought like, oh, you're trying to make me think that my wife is cheating on me because she works at a massage parlor, kind of a thing, which people had kind of said before, like, oh, Asian massage parlor, must be, doing happy endings and all this stuff, which she had told me before, like, oh yeah, guys would come in sometimes and be like, oh yeah, how much for this? And she would tell them to get the fuck out. She'd laugh. She'd be laughing after work, telling me like, oh, this creep turned over and there's a bulge, and I told him, I left the room and I told him, like, he can get out, or stop that. So she is not that type of woman at all. But yeah, that was when it started to become really clear to me that they were targeting my wife, and that I thought it was like the government just basically trying to put me in a loony bin or kill me, or organized crime, that I had maybe discovered something at that Shake and Crab restaurant, or my previous association with organized crime, that I'd walked away from in Cambridge and Providence. And yeah, I thought I was a target, but that was when I realized that it's my wife. They're after my wife. And yeah, they were, because during that period, they drove me nuts. They had me running around the apartment, talking to myself, totally freaking out. I mean, the amount of control they have, it's not just like they talk in your head. They can put you into brain states. They put you into emotional states, combined with the psychological torture, and misdirection, making me think everything in my house is poisoned, or that, police are at the door, with a warrant for me. And I'm just like, I didn't do anything. Why are the police here? And they gave up on that angle. But then they just started focusing on just saying, like, we're taking your wife and there's nothing you can do about it. And, and over that period, that's when I saw a rapid change in her behavior, where, I mean, I noticed at first, like, when she was sleeping, she would, like, contort and do strange things when she was sleeping. She would stop breathing, and she would pull the blanket over her head and cocoon herself in the blanket, like completely, like, covering up her face with the blanket. And I would just gently kind of pull the blanket off so she could breathe. She would insist on having the door to the bedroom closed, and we could never open any windows. It was all this weird behavior that just started like that. And then the behavioral changes started, where she started arguing about everything. It was like every single thing, there would be these weird arguments that would happen. And I would just try to keep a cool head. But yeah, I noticed right away she was getting irrationally angry about all sorts of weird things. And then yeah, they basically drove me nuts. They really they hit it home, where she went off to a Buddhist retreat in New Hampshire with a friend of hers for 2 days, which was suspicious in itself. A monastery in the woods, where she sent me pictures of and everything. I know she was there with her friend, but they were like, "Oh, you can't use your phone when you're here." And right away I'm like, "Well, why? Why can't you use your phone? Like, that's like a Buddhist thing." And I still ended up calling her, and she, like, got mad, and she's like, "I'm not supposed to use the phone." And during that period, though, when I was alone in the apartment, they went nuts on me. Like, they kept me up for, like, the entire time. I could not sleep. They can do something where they just keep you awake. They just made me, like, wired, like I just drank a bunch of energy drinks or something.
It sounds like
I
it.
just, like,
huh? Have you ever told anybody about this problem, like local police, FBI, Homeland Security?
Yeah, I mean, I was in, like, a panic state, and I made the mistake of contacting the FBI and trying to say exactly what was happening, where I was like, yeah, it looks like my wife is being trafficked, and there's some type of, like, hypnosis or mind control involved. And then he just went, "Okay, sir, that's all I need to hear. Thank you very much." And he hung up the phone. So I was like, all right, can't do that. Yeah. And then I tried, I sent in, a tip to Homeland Security, because this seems to be happening to multiple different women at the places where my wife works at. It's they're targeting Southeast Asian women, third world immigrants that are coming here that don't have any family here. And I think that they're doing this process to all of them, where they can basically, I think over, a period of, it seems like it took about a year, where, yeah, you get them in an apartment that you have rigged up. They're using a combination of, I think, surreptitiously drugging people, either through that aerosol or some kind of gas, or maybe even, just traditional ways through the food, or different drinks that they get. People can sneak into the house. They can dose your drinks, your water, your milk, whatever. And then the apartments I was in, I felt like I was getting microwaved, and I finally got a EMF meter, and I got readings. I sent you pictures of the readings that I took at one of the apartments, and they were
Yes.
through the roof. It was like 274 ppv, 27 mg. It was crazy high readings, and that's what they're doing. They can basically use electromagnetic frequency to, I think, put you into these brain states, which is proven science. It's well known that can be done. And then they're also, I think that there's a drugging involved, or they're possibly using like one thing I looked into was people can use Freon or like refrigerant, and it's like pretty much like odorless. And if that's released into a house, it'll cause brain damage over time, which would aid in this kind of post-hypnotic suggestion, kind of brainwashing that they're doing, which is, basically what it is. It's that's what this mind control thing is. It's not like V2K is just all audible sound, with people talking at you. There's a level of V2K where you can do it subliminally, and hypnotic priming when people are sleeping, and yeah, you can basically hypnotize people and brainwash people. And I think that's what they're clearly doing to a lot of these women that are working at these at different places, not just like a massage place, but nail places and stuff like that, because they don't have any family here. They don't have anybody to see changes in their behavior. Like my wife, like she's just here by herself and she only knows me. So, I think they spotted me through one way or the other. I didn't realize I was really putting myself at risk, like all the people I knew and stuff I was posting online about the government. And then, yeah, they saw me and they were like, hey, we can just take this guy out of the picture and we can just take his wife. And he's basically the only one there. And, once he's discredited and kicked out, then we gotta, we have a woman that we can basically traffic. And that is exactly what they did. That's exactly what they did. Eventually, at this place in Stoughton, they were V2K'ing me so badly. It was just like all day long. And then they were like, yeah, we're trafficking her at work. Like, we can knock her into these hypnotic states and do whatever we want to her. And when they go in there to do a massage and doors closed, we send in people that are in the know and they do whatever they want. And at first I thought it was total, it was bull crap. But then I actually saw for myself, they did it to her right in front of me, where basically she was talking at me and acting like bizarre, like saying weird stuff. And I was trying to reason with her. And she just went into a full hypnotic state. Her hands dropped down to her thighs, like she was, just like you see a hypnotist on stage do with people. Like her hands dropped down to her side, her head lolled into her chest, and I just went, baby, baby, baby. And I grabbed her and I started shaking her. I was like, are you okay? Are you okay? And she just like stayed like that for a second and then slowly raised up her head and like had this completely calm, weird demeanor look on her face. Like it was just like a eerily, like robotic look on her face. And she just said like, get away from me. And she just walked into the other room and sat down on the couch and started looking at her phone and just acting like nothing had happened. So once I saw that, I realized like, oh yeah, they're using hypnosis. Like this is like classic hypnosis. And yeah, so they drove me pretty crazy there, and I was trying to figure out what to do because it's an unbelievable story, and I couldn't go to any, like, what are you going to tell police? Like, it's like insane. And I was just trying to figure out how I could, like, that was another thing. And when this all started, I tried telling her, like, we got to go to Thailand. We got to get out of here. Like, we were planning on moving back to Thailand, or, her moving back to Thailand, and I was going to move with her. But when I talked to her about it now, she's just like, no, I'm not moving back there. Like maybe in a couple of years, where before she wanted to move back there almost right away. But now it was out of the question, like she had to stay there. And so they were freaking me out in this apartment. I mean, just like the V2K is insane. They had me running around like a lunatic. And yeah, there was one day where like I freaked out. I was like, I couldn't believe I couldn't do anything, and I had this like little TV that was like on a table next to me, and I punched the TV. Like I was alone in the apartment, and I was just so mad. I just punched the TV, and it fell over. And I just sat there, and I just had my head in my hands, like, what am I gonna do? Like this is, just being tortured, and V2K just going nonstop in my ear. I mean, in my head, and I get a knock at the door, at the sliding door, because there was like a sliding door out to the back of the apartment, onto the back lawn, and there's cops out there. And I open up the sliding glass door, but I keep the screen door closed, and there's a cop there. And again, tattoos all over him. Look like just look like kind of a mean dude. And he goes, "Yeah, we got a noise complaint." And I was like, "Oh, sorry. I think I knocked over a TV by accident. Sorry about that." And he goes, "All right, well, why don't you step outside?" And I go, I mean, I'm kind of in my boxers here, and like I didn't, I mean, it's just a noise complaint. I said I'd keep it down. I just knocked over a TV. And I said, "Step outside." And he just opened up the screen door. He barreled in there. He kind of knocked it off of the frame, actually. He didn't even open it up all the way. He kind of broke it. And he grabbed me by the arm, pushed me against the wall, put my hand behind my back, handcuffed me. And he was growling, and he was like growling in my ear. He was like, saying something like, "You want to be a smart ass? You're gonna come outside. You come outside when I tell you." And I was just like, "All right, okay, all right. Sorry." And he dragged me out onto the back lawn, handcuffed, and they sit me down in the middle of the lawn. So like all my neighbors, looking out at me. I'm handcuffed to my boxers, just sitting there, like looking at them, like, oh my God. And the other cop is looking at me like with a smile on his face, like he's got this smirk. And he's like, "Yeah, so what's going on with you?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I knocked over a TV. Sorry. What's the problem?" And he's like, "Okay, you have any history of mental illness?" And I go, No, I'm 39 years old. I have no history of mental illness." He goes, "Okay, you hearing voices or anything?" I go, "No, not hearing any voices." And he goes, "Okay, well, we're just trying to figure out if everything's okay with you." And at this point, my wife comes home, and she's like, she looks weird. Like she's like holding herself in a weird way. Like she's like holding her elbows and like walking in this like weird way I've never seen her walk. Like her posture was all different. And she walks in with the other cop that had grabbed me, and they're walking around the apartment, and I guess he's just questioning her, and I find out later that he was asking her like, does he have any weapons in here? Are there any weapons or anything? And she told him like that I had a machete, which I did, because I had a machete that I like to juggle, and I would like juggle it around. And she told him that I like to juggle a machete, and he wrote in the police report that I was running around with a machete, acting manic, is what he wrote down in the police report. And so he comes out and he goes, "Okay, get in the cruiser." And I'm like, "What?" And he drags me over to a cruiser. This is in October, and it was hot. Like it was like a hot ass day. And he throws me in the back of this cruiser. They roll up all the windows. They keep the cruiser off. It's hot. I'm just sweating in there. I'm in there for like 45 minutes, maybe an hour. And an ambulance pulls up, and there's three different cop cars. And I'm like, "What the hell is this? Like I knocked over a TV. Like this is insane." And after like an hour, they he opens up the door of the cruiser, and he's like, "Yeah, we're gonna take you to the hospital." And I go, "For what?" And he goes, "We're gonna have you checked out, make sure that you're all right, mentally." And I go, "Oh my God!" He puts me on a gurney. They handcuff me to the gurney. They drive me over to Brockton Hospital. They unload me, bring me into the hospital. I'm just staying calm as I possibly can. I'm like horrified. I'm like, they're doing it again. They're trying to put me in a loony bin. I didn't even do anything. And they wheel me in to like the emergency room area. I think it was near a psych ward, because I could hear crazy people like going nuts in one of the rooms, like smashing things and yelling. And they just sit me there in like the hallway of the hospital, and the cops talk to like these nurses for like 10 minutes. And at this point, I'm like, "Can I just get like a glass of water, or or talk to a lawyer?"
Ben.
Like, what's happening?
Ben, It would appear that we're going to have to put you on for another session because it is that time. I would like to thank you very much for spending an evening with us. I would like to thank my supporters. I would like to thank the listeners. And I would like to say good night from Boston, Massachusetts. My name is Frank Allen.